Good morning, Internet, and welcome to Bonsai by Alan. And in the vein of cutting back my Portulacaria Mame / Shohin trees, I'm going to continue with 4 more. So this is the first one. It's also in a convex or concave. Anyway, it swoops in pot, green pot, and it's got a really thick trunk. Look at that trunk there. And you know, it leans forward quite a bit, so it could, when it does get to be repotted, it could be brought so it's not leaning so far forward. But today, as in the other videos, we're just going to do a haircut. And the only reason that you wouldn't do a haircut like this is just laziness. So, it's me. I'm lazy. I'm sorry. Now we've got this branch right here, but actually swoops way up into here. So visually, if we take that away, that eliminates a lot of the visual weight here, but it has to go. And cut this, cut this, cut this. And I don't want that as the leader. This is quote unquote a back branch. And I think this guy's going to be the leader. Of course, I could always wire him up. Quit moving the pot. Wire him up like that. So for now, cut back. Quickest haircut in the West. But that's a pretty cool tree. So if nothing more, we're seeing that even with an overgrown tree like this, it's got a really nice structure. It looked horrible when it was overgrown, but now if you imagine all the new leaves, and Portulacaria will sprout off all of this bare wood in no time at all. We're at the end of February here, and because I live in the US in zone 10, we're basically in the spring. So this guy's going to pop like crazy. He's also going to get some fertilizer, as is every other tree. So number 2 is a little different because it actually has wire. And it's typical with me. It's got wire that's sticking way out. And this is an interesting, it's sort of like a mother and a child, but then it's got this guy here too. So the first thing to do is to start taking off the wire. You can see one piece of wire is, and I unravel my wire, so I'm going to do that with this guy. One piece of wire is very bright, and that's because it's just really old. And the aluminum, the copper coating has just worn off over time. The copper coating on this aluminum wire. Modern bonsai wire is basically aluminum that is in copper colored, so it's not as gaudy. And this wire that I'm taking off now, there was actually 2 pieces. It's just so old that the copper coating came off. Traditionally, enunciate, real copper was used to wire bonsai. But real copper needs to be annealed, which means it needs to be heated to about 700 degrees, and then that softens it up, and then when you actually bend the wire, the copper hardens back up, so it will hold the branches into place quite well. However, I'm going to spin them around so I can see what I'm doing here. You cannot unwind copper wire because as it hardens it becomes virtually impossible to unwind. And copper wire is still used, but the vast majority of people that I know as bonsai hobbyists use the copper coated aluminum wire. Can I get that guy out of here? Here we go. Alright. He's in a little bit different style pot, a little bit smaller pot, but I included him in here. Let me get him back in the middle of the frame. I included him in here because he's about the same size as everybody else. We've got one branch coming away from the base, little tiny thing, so that can come off. And then this branch here really doesn't need much trimming. This needs trimming in the back. And we have this branch here that's shooting up against the grain, so that comes off. And I'm not entirely sure about the parent and the child part, this part, because you see this branch here is encroaching visually with this part here. So I could conceivably take this off like that and accentuate this part, or I could almost take the whole thing off. So I'm not quite sure. So I'd probably say I'm not quite sure in a lot of these videos, but that just means that I've got time to wait, to see, to look. Bonsai is not a massive, you gotta be in a hurry, finish kind of hobby, at least not for me. Okay, so then what else do we have? Not that much. Wiring gave this tree a pretty decent form. And this branch too is going against the grain, and I don't like him. And that, when I cut him off, that's just going to open the trunk so much more nicely. There we go. Definitely need to deal with whether, do I save this and cut this away? I'm thinking very seriously of downloading a Photoshop kind of app to take a picture and then virtually style it and give you that look too. Okay, so there's number 2. For today, we're not going to do that. There's number 2. Number 3 is a little bit bigger than the other guy. It's twin root, and it still has space, and it's had that space for a long time. And then as far as the maintenance, create the pad. This guy here. I don't know if you noticed, but this branch here just kind of ends in a stump, which is not great, but and this back branch really doesn't have anything going back, so try to accentuate growth. I don't like this stubby guy right here. And sometimes you don't really need, I'll take that guy off too, open it up a little bit. You don't only need a perfect apex, you can have just kind of a crown that's created by a number of different branches coming up to create the apex. So he is an interesting tree also. Cut him away and cut him away. Alright. Clean up. Number 4 is also an interesting tree. has very, very thick branches. And this guy here, I'm going to save him for now, but he's probably coming off entirely. You can see these branches, like this one was cut way back, and then we have this little tiny bit of growth. This is shooting back against the grain. Shorten this guy up. And really this branch here needs to be wired into place so it's got more continuity to this. One thing about bonsai, when they look pleasing, is that you have similar structure to your branches. So right now it's like, you know, this one is almost perfectly flat and this one just shoots way down, which is just very visually disturbing. So just bringing it up like that will create a much nicer visage. And we have a sacrifice branch in the back here that is probably ready to come off. And you notice, if you look at it, it's a pretty cool little tree all by itself. That could make an interesting little mame. Like, let's do it like that. Try to hide the rest of the tree. So that might make a very interesting little mame tree. Try to put it back where I had it. And then just cut the apex. Yeah, this tree definitely needs some wire. And in fact, I think I'm going to do that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the wire that I've got sitting on the bench from the guy I just unwired. And it's a little heavy. I either have a choice of too heavy or probably not heavy enough. But then again, that might work. That might work. So let's do this one. Off camera, I'm attempting to straighten the wire out the best I can before I get it onto the tree. And whenever I'm wiring a branch, I want it facing me. I'm going to try to let you see what I'm doing here. And typically, if you watch a lot of different bonsai videos, branches are not typically brought up. They're usually brought down. Usually a tree is growing with upright branches that you want to make horizontal to create more of an impression of age, but this is much nicer. This is an exception. I think I'll bring him down too, since I have another chunk of wire. And this part here isn't going anywhere because it's just too thick. And bring him down into there. And I'm going to cut some of this weird stuff out of the sacrifice branch. Alright, that looks so much nicer with those branches wired into place. And so there you go. 4 more. Portulacaria jade. This one also has some really gorgeous moss. Actually, 3 out of the 4 have nice moss. Why the 4th one doesn't, I have no idea. But like I said in another video, I don't really promote moss per se. It just shows up. If you're doing it right, if you're keeping your trees moist enough and they're getting decent fertilizer, then the moss will just show up. Okay, and now the next step on these guys is a little touch of fertilizer. And then the next time I'm ready to trim these guys, and I'm never going to let them overgrow again, because now that I've got this channel, I'm going to be much more conscientious about keeping my trees maintained a little bit better. So thank you so much for watching.